Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers with Tricia Flanagan here on Campaign for America. We have a lot to talk with you about this evening. Tricia's going to break down exactly what is happening with the Electoral College. Where do we go from here? We've got some breaking news with regard to the Chinese Communist Party that I'll tell you is going to shock you folks. So we'll get to that in a minute. And we do have some issues that we want to talk about what's happening here in the tri-state area, excuse me, as well as some other states. But Tricia, one thing's been on my mind since the people of this country have been inundated with all of the depressing news, and it's really getting to them. And I'm sure you've heard from them. A lot of sad people, a lot of people with their heads down, and we need to let them know it isn't over, number one, all right? And I'm sure you're gonna bring that to the forefront later. And number two, I'm asked, where do we go from here? What do we do? Where do we go? If the president doesn't prevail, where do we go? And I've shared with people this, and folks, please listen to me very, very carefully. There is no place else to go at times than on our knees. To do what? The only time we get on our knees, unlike a lot of other people, the only time we get on our knees is when we're worshiping and we're praying to God Almighty. At this point in time in American history, we need to really, truly make a connection with the Holy Spirit, with God. And believe me, folks, you know, when you look at American history and really dig deep into the historical documents we have and the people that made history, mostly all of them did that. They did that, folks. They realized that there was a divine providence. There's a God above who has always kept the shadow of his wings over this nation. Now, when I say he has kept the shadow of his wings over this nation, you, your children, your families are part of this nation. So he is keeping the shadow of his wings over you. So that's why we say, and well, actually the Bible says, be not discouraged. Remember what Ronald Reagan said. In fact, John Winthrop said it in the beginning, and it is in the Bible, the word shining city on a hill. We shine as bright as you, we the people shine. And let us shine now. This to me is an opportunity to reflect on our lives, an opportunity to reflect on our faith, an opportunity to reflect on where we have been as a country and where we're going, but also an opportunity to thank God that we had a president like Donald Trump. He broke the back of the establishment. He did it not only with the Republican Party, he did it with the Democrat Party. He broke the back of establishment politics that has disenfranchised us forever. So take it as an opportunity. You pray for guidance, you pray for relief, you pray for grace, and you pray for mercy. Let's do it, all right? Now is our time. Tricia?
Yes, amen to that. And, you know, the words from Psalms come to my mind, be not afraid. And also from Joshua 1:9, be strong and of a good courage, because not only will God shepherd us through this process, but our Constitution will as well. And we had some breaking news on the air on Friday when that news came in about the Supreme Court decision, but that was never our only route. And as we said on that broadcast, that there are 12th Amendment constitutional provisions. The doors are opened up. We'll walk through that journey today. December 14th was when our electors are certified, and there's some great news in all of that that we'll unpack. So we've opened another Supreme Court door. We've opened a constitutional door. This ain't over, as we always say, and there's lots more fight, many paths to victory that we'll outline tonight.
And Tricia, we'll do that in a few minutes. Now, we like to keep you aware of what's happening around the country, that the mainstream media will not provide you with information on. Well, one bit of good news from a Democrat, believe it or not, Democrat from Hawaii, Representative Tulsi Gabbard. She's defying her own party leadership, and she's introduced a law mandating medical care for infants who survive abortions. Folks, believe it or not, especially in the state of New York, if an infant is surviving abortion, they could kill that infant. They could destroy that human being out of the mother's womb. That's the way it is right now. And Tricia, I'll tell you what, anybody who has been for abortions, who now know this, and folks, you could check it out, I'm hoping to God Almighty they realize what they are supporting. This is outright homicide.
Yes, it is. And there is a critical bill that stands to come to the congressional floor in coming sessions, and that's the Born Alive bill. And it seems shocking that anyone wouldn't support such a bill. But Tulsi Gabbard is one of the Democrats who are stepping up. And this outlines one of our points that we've made all along is that there are a number of pro-life Democrats who are ready to join us in this fight. Nothing's more important. I've done a lot of work in this area. As you know, I'm a huge pro-life advocate. I've heard testimony from those who have survived abortions, and some have physical maladies, some have been incapacitated, but at least they have their lives. And I'm glad that this is something where we can actually reach across the aisle. Conservatives everywhere should be joining us in this fight to make sure that all of those precious babies are given the right to live.
Tricia, as you were speaking, I'm watching the feed, and there was a question that came up is, how do you think God feels about this? Well, listen, I'm not God. I talk to him. I don't hear voices from heaven, but based on his last will and testament, that's the New and Old Testament. When you read stuff like, I knew you from the womb, I formed you in the womb. I mean, that's pretty convincing stuff. So look I don't think God feels very good about this. And I've always believed, after I read the Bible from cover to cover, there's a day of judgment for all of us. And there's a day of judgment for nations. And we just might want to think about that. All right, folks, just think about what I just shared with you. We need to stop this, and we need to stop it as soon as we could. Something you may not know, which kind of shocked me, but maybe nothing should shock us these days. A former Osama bin Laden henchman, he was convicted in 2 deadly 1998 bombings. A terrorist, folks, a terrorist is free. He was freed this week after being released by a Manhattan federal judge who agreed that the terrorist was too fat. That's, folks, I'm telling you, he agreed he was too heavy, too obese, too fat. So he could no longer be expected to stay in jail. Why? Here we go again, Tricia, because of the coronavirus. Here we go again. We're now releasing terrorists from prison, let alone every other criminal that's going to walk the streets and cause havoc on our cities. But we have released a terrorist because of this virus. Tricia, they're using this virus as an excuse to do everything in advancing their socialist, communist, criminal agenda.
Well, they really are. And the truth is coming out. And I mean, this is such a ridiculous argument. I mean, first, this falls under that concept that the liberals love of restorative justice, that, you know, we have to look at things from the criminal's perspective. And of course, that's ridiculous. Law and order requires that there be consequences, and law and order ceases to be valid if we don't adhere to the consequences that have been doled out. But to your exact point, that there are legislators, there are a number of health and human services officials. For example, in California, their CHHS advocate already said, they admitted on tape that they were just using this coronavirus to make sure that people stayed in their homes. They admitted on camera that it wasn't about safety, closing down restaurants. They wanted people to be in their homes. It begs the question, then what's their real motive? What's at the root of all of this? But if we are going to let criminals out, like the worst of them, this bin Laden henchman, we've really reached a tipping point of egregiousness that I can't even put into words.
Well, here we go again, communism on the march. And you're going to hear me talk about that a lot. I've decided to kind of dismiss the word socialism because truly we have advanced. We are now seeing a communist agenda being advanced by politicians across this country. So Virginia Governor Ralph Northam, he actually has told citizens how to worship. In other words, he actually said, from what I read in some of the reports I have, that you don't need to go to church to worship. You don't need to get on your knees to worship, and on and on and on. Well, you know what? Look, you can worship God anyway. I agree with that. But that's up to you. That's not up to the government to close houses of worship down, or to restrict you from singing in a choir, or to actually dictate to you how you will worship. And look, my wife, former resident of Soviet Russia, and others like her will tell you that here we go again. This is the beginning of state control. And guess what, folks? Guess what the reason is for him signing executive orders telling people how they will worship coronavirus. Here we go again, Tricia.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing that he could make a statement that's so bold and brazen as that. The First Amendment says freedom of religion. It doesn't say freedom of religion according to Governor Northam. And you know, this is something that, you know, in our Constitution, our rights are enshrined by God, by the consent of the governed. We, the people, get to decide how we can worship, exactly as you said. And you know, this is a further step. You know, there's a story that I just heard over the weekend about the dog whose chain was shortened link by link until he realized finally that he had no more freedom anymore. And that's what this sounds like. Link by link, amendment by amendment, freedom by freedom, right by right. They're not just being taken from us, but we are willingly giving them up if we don't take a stand. And I believe the tipping point in time is now.
So we have a president named Donald J. Trump, who has truly hindered the ability of illegal immigrants to come into this country. And there's a reason for that. He's made sure that those who have committed serious crimes would be locked up and deported forever. Well, we know that if, and I say if because it ain't over till it's over, Joe Biden becomes president, we're going to have more of this. A homeless man accused of fatally stabbing two people inside a California church, here we go, California again, over the weekend was deported 3 times and never turned over to federal immigration officials before the attack, despite multiple arrests and convictions for violent crimes. So here we go. Illegal immigrant, deported 3 times, came back 3 times, arrested 3 or 4 times, in fact, multiple arrests, over a dozen arrests, and because of the communist rules and regulations where they have sanctuary cities, where they have people being told, don't report these people, these criminals to the police. Local police are told not to support or cooperate with ICE. We now have 2 people fatally stabbed to death by an individual that should have been in prison for life, or at the very least, removed from this country for life. Here we go again, Tricia, removed why from prison? The coronavirus.
Well, exactly. And these are the horrible stories that we hear almost on a loop. And they happen in these sanctuary cities where politicians stand to actually protect these criminals from deportation. These are criminals that have crossed the border illegally in most situations, should not have been here to begin with. And when you have these multiple deportations and then someone turning a blind eye, this is what happens. Those are lives that are lost. They'll never be at a holiday table anymore. They'll miss out on all of the life that they should have had if it weren't for these criminals. This, you know how much of a huge supporter I am of immigration reform, and this type of sanctuary city status, and the politicians who protect them illegally have to be held accountable, or we're going to just hear more of the same tragic stories over and over again.
And I'm sure, Tricia, you agree with me when we talk about immigration reform, when we talk about criminal justice reform. We're talking about reforms that protect the good guys, that protect the victims, not the bad guys, not the criminals, but the Dem Socialist Communist Party, they have it in reverse. They want to protect the bad guys. Why? They control the bad guys. They want to have the state control all of our lives. So they hindered the ability of the police. And by the way, we're going to be talking about that in the future of what is going on with the police and how the Biden administration is going to truly hinder their ability to do their job. But listen to this. The state of New Jersey, that's the East Coast, California, right? Communism on the march in New Jersey. Governor Murphy, to drive the final nail in the coffin he made for New Jersey restaurant owners, bars, and businesses. His rules for New Year's Eve means game over for them. He and his Dem communists started a war against the people. The people will end it. I tweeted that out. Folks, it's over. The businesses are going to die. Why do I say that? Because I spoke to a number of business people, brought to tears. I'm telling you, emotional conversations. Their lives are over. It's gone. Christmas time, New Year's Eve was probably the most profitable time in their year of bringing income in to feed their families. New York City is finished Forget about Broadway. Forget about even the tree lighting. I heard that hardly anybody goes. There's no cops around. A tragic shooting the other night on the steps of a church. I mean, my goodness. But the fact of the matter is, so you got Governor Murphy, you got Governor Cuomo, you got Governor Nordstrom, you got all these Dem socialist communist governors just getting away with what I believe is truly a pathway to a communist nation. But let me just say this to them. And let me say this to those of you who support them, who stand shoulder to shoulder with them, and who, without any question, do their bidding. It's going to be game over for you. And I'll tell you why. We're Americans. I don't believe you're Americans. I would never question a person's patriotism. But a true American patriot does not support policies that are trampling on the constitutional rights of the people of this country. I'm not talking politics now. I'm not talking a political party. I'm talking about the Constitution of the United States of America. That knows no political party. That's ours, Americans. We own that document. You don't own it. I do. You don't own it. Tricia does. You don't own it. American patriots across this country that are proud of this flag right behind me and proud of the founding fathers. We own it. So here's what's going to happen. Mark my words. These governors and these Dem communists, they're going to be thrown out of office. Believe me, they're going to be thrown out of office. And when they're thrown out of office, believe me, American patriotism will prevail. Now, I urge everyone who is an American patriot to lower the temperature when it comes to some of the things we're hearing on the internet. And I know, Tricia, you want to weigh in on this. When we talk about revolution, when we talk about armed conflict, when we talk about people taken to the streets committing acts of violence, folks, we don't want that. Look, I've been in the military. I've been a police officer. I talked to a number of people from the NRA this week, and some of them have asked me, the NRA, Tricia, asked me to convey a message on our broadcast. No one wants an armed conflict. No one wants violence. The only time we use our guns, folks, is when hunters go hunting and we go target practice. All right. We don't want that. And I pray to God it doesn't happen. But we have a trigger finger. Right here it is, folks, a trigger finger. And if you're disabled and you can't use your fingers, well, there's other ways that you can use something to trigger what? To trigger the revolution. And it'll be a revolution of ideas. It'll be a revolution of American patriotism. And the battlefield is going to be in the voting booth. Folks, believe me, it will be in the voting booth. And I think, Tricia, by the time we get to the next big battle in America regarding an election, these paper ballots and these mail-in votes are gone. But we need to share with our listeners, and we're going to ask you all to convey this to your friends that are starting to talk about violence. We don't want that, because I'll tell you what, folks, we need to show our children, especially children and grandchildren, that democracy stands on principles, that we stand strong with each other, doing what is right, doing what is proper, doing what is just within the framework of the Constitution. Tricia?
Yes, exactly. And, it really is. It's the battlefield of rational persuasion. Those are the tools that our forefathers used. And, this is something that I understand, believe me. When we see justice not being served, when we hear about all of the election fraud irregularities, and when we hear about all of the criminals that are really in some of these political positions who have yet to be brought to justice, I understand that that's something that people get frustrated with. But the tools that are at our disposal, the most effective ones right now, especially when we're so close to the precipice of justice and of the inauguration, this is the time for cool heads to prevail and for rational persuasion to be the place that we choose to fight. And we will see the fruit. I know it's been a long battle. I know it feels like it's hard won and hard fought, but we are almost there. And of course we have a Second Amendment provision in our Constitution, but we want to exhaust all of the other amendments. That's why we have a First Amendment. That's why we have a right to protest and have our ideas heard, because that's where I believe this battle has to be fought right now.
And be not discouraged. As discouraging as things are, there's always a silver lining. There's always light. So when you ask the question, What can I do? I feel helpless. What can I do? You're doing something. You're watching this broadcast and you're gathering information and intelligence to share with your friends. You're praying. You are doing something. Don't underestimate what you're doing because that is critical. Prayer is critical. We don't see it, right? Can you see prayer? I don't see it, but I know when I pray, it's going to the right place and I'm getting a return on that. When you share information over the internet or with a person that can hear it, you don't know what's going through their mind. But I could tell you, you planted seeds. You planted seeds of hope. So don't underestimate what you're doing at this point in time. And finally, before we go to Tricia about an update on the election and on the courts, here we go. In the beginning, right? I'm not going to give you the book of Genesis. I'm saying in the beginning, when we started this broadcast, we hammered away at the Chinese Communist Party. We're the first broadcast, I believe, on the internet that really took them to task. And there were a lot of things we were talking about. And you know what? The establishment and some others laughed it off. You guys are exaggerating. It isn't that bad. Even Joe Biden, I believe, Tricia, you was the one who said, we don't have to worry about China, right? They're not bad. They're not an enemy. Well, it turns out we were right. We were so right that now every media outlet in the country is focusing in on who? The Chinese Communist Party. How about this, folks? Swallow this one. Remember we talked about 300 universities being infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party, 300 American universities. Well, we got an intelligence report today. This is all factual. In fact, you can look it up, okay? It's out there now. I'll just say this. Thousands of CCP operatives were found at American universities this past summer, following the July closure of Houston's Chinese consulate. The U.S. government uncovered an intelligence operation to collect scientific research in the fields such as biomedicine and artificial intelligence. The Trump administration and the DOJ pledged to crack down harder on the East Asian power player, which is China, reporting in November that around 80% of all economic espionage prosecutions brought by DOJ was what? Was benefiting communist China. In September, Acting Homeland Security Chief Chad Wolf announced the revocation of more than 1,000 visas from Chinese graduate students and researchers, and federal charges were brought against them, which leads us to this. Out of those thousands and thousands of Chinese, pretty much intelligence agents that are here, how is it that the one that slipped through the cracks now is Christine Fang, right? You remember her, Christine Fang, folks? Christine Fang, she has developed ties. Now, Tricia, I want to emphasize this, ties with the following government level office holders, because we did say this. We were the first who said this. She has developed ties with local and national politicians. Remember, folks, we said that the Chinese Communist Party is not just looking at our congressmen, at our senators, at a president, for example. Well, let's put it this way, at a maybe president, for example. But they are looking on every level of government, including school boards and college administrations, to bring their communist agenda to our country. So anyway, they developed these ties with local and national politicians, including California Democrat Representative Eric Swalwell. Now, Swalwell is on what? Well, he happens to be on one of the national security committees of the United States Congress. But also, how is it that the Chinese apparently got some sort of an influencer at this point? Hooked up with who? Joe Biden. And all that, Trish, is now coming to the surface. And mark my words, the focus of attention, because the press will always be the press, they'll always be in the gutter, because they're not looking to report news, they're looking to make news. They're going to start targeting Biden. Wait and see, because they know that the American people despise communism. So they're going to go after Biden. They're going to go after his son. They should have done that now when President Trump allowed and assigned the DOJ to expose this. But they waited, didn't they? They waited till after the election. But now we're on to them. So here's another warning to those politicians who are in bed, whether figuratively or literally in some cases with Chinese intelligence officers. We're coming for you. Who are we? American patriots. Look, we're not sitting back anymore, folks. We've been on the defensive too long. We, American patriots, are now on the offense. We're coming after you. We're going to come to your neighborhoods. We're going to come to where you work. We're going to come to where you live. We're coming for you. And we're not coming with bullets and bombs, for goodness sakes. We're coming with what's in our hearts, our souls, our spirits, and our heads. And we're coming with what? The tools that God has given us, the skills that we have, the equipment like what you're looking at right now. I mean, we're streaming on 3 social media platforms live across the country and around the world. Only on 3 right now: YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And we're going to go, and hopefully we're going to have, by the end of the year, next year, 30 platforms. And it's not only Campaign for America, but we've got people who we're working with across the country who are doing exactly what we're doing on other social media networks. And in addition to that, I shared with Tricia tonight, our Twitter account went from 45,000. We were up to 45,000 as of this morning. As of now, 46,000, and climbing every day. Our Facebook pages are surpassing 16,000. Tricia has a following of thousands and thousands. So folks, believe me, America, we're strong, we're tough, we're Americans. And you know what? We win.
Yes, we do. And, that is so important. And this is one of the reasons I'm so committed to this cause, because we see every day more and more of our news is being selected for us by the mainstream media. Big tech, when we dig into today's big breaking news, big tech has completely censored all of the breaking news for President Trump. The mainstream media refuses to report on it. And this is so important. That's why we always say share, 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 right? Because there, the investigations into Joe Biden, we know how big tech wouldn't give any air to that New York Post article. And what we found out now is that there was one study showing 83% of voters in one segment had never heard about that report about the corruption. And 17% of those said if they had, they would have changed their vote. This has huge impact. And when you look at this Eric Swalwell issue, I reported last week how I'm getting inside information that Eric Swalwell is already going to be taken off the Intel committee, because even Democrats are seeing the liability. The only one still fighting for him is Nancy Pelosi. We'll see when Congress reconvenes on January 3rd, but I'm hearing he's already been ousted. And the point there is that unless we share our information, and unless you tune into news channels like ours that are dedicated to the real information, it won't be heard.
Governor Murphy, you wanted a war? You're going to get your war. Believe me, you're going to get your war. Right now, we're all distracted, rightfully so, on this election coming up. We're supporting our president. We're going to stand by him. He is doing what he should be doing. He's looking for answers to questions we all have. Why wouldn't a Democrat, think about this, folks, why wouldn't anyone who supported Joe Biden want to know the truth, no matter what it is? Look at, we understand if the truth don't fall down on what we would like it to be, well, it is what it is. I happen to believe that, you know what, there is a truth out there that we're not being told. All right, there's a truth out there that some of this stuff doesn't make sense, but why don't we do this? And I said this earlier, Tricia, what's wrong with a court hearing the evidence? Debating the merit of the cases. They don't even want the president to go forward with presenting his case. So we, the American people, we're going to present that case. All right. And listen, like I said, we're not talking about crazy stuff. Never, folks, go into combat. Never go into combat based on emotions. That's when we lose. We go into combat strategically, and we use strategies and tactics that cause us to win. And I remember when I was a naval officer, an admiral once said to me, you pick and choose your battles, you fight a battle, you know you're going to win. And believe me, we're going to win. Governor Murphy is shutting down this state. He's ruining lives of people. He don't care. I don't care what they say. And how any Democrat businessman or businesswoman could support this guy, you're supporting communism. You're supporting the worst of it. You're supporting the ruination of your kids' future, for goodness sakes. Tricia, you know what bothers me? I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here, right? Because my blood's boiling. I never get a chance to do this. And we'll go over a little bit. I have friends who live in foreign countries. Their children are getting the best education in the world. Even through the virus, they go to school. They're being educated in the classroom, all right? Here in America, we now look at a whole year of students a whole year of their education being stolen from them, a whole year of interacting, of socializing. I mean, if anything can identify what communism is, this is it. They've got these rules and regulations where they have even been able to control our children. Enough is enough. We're coming for them. And we're going to come for them at the right time, at the right place. And I'm talking about within the framework of the Constitution, because there are people who need leadership. Tricia, I think you and I talked about this in both parties, all right? And I could talk about the Republican Party. There's no leadership for the most part in a lot of states. I know there isn't any leadership here in New Jersey in the Republican Party, or we wouldn't be in the position we're in. There is no leadership in many other states, California, Virginia. We could go down the line. In Florida, there is. I always bring Florida up. You got a great governor in Ron DeSantis, Joe Grutter, probably one of the best chairmen in the country. They know how to do it. But getting back to what I was saying, we need to take the bull by the horns, folks. Tricia and I are going to lead the fight. Campaign for America is going to lead the fight. We're not going to give up. We are now leading the fight, all right, with a bunch of other organizations. We've created a national coalition. We've kept that pretty quiet, but I'm going to tell you just a little bit. We have created a national coalition that's going to lead the fight against who? The Chinese Communist Party. I hope you're listening in Beijing. We're coming after you. I don't care how big you are, how strong you are. As Ronald Reagan brought the Soviet Communist Party down, we, not me and Tricia or any of us single-handedly, we the people of the United States are coming after you, and you're going to be sent into the ash bin of history like the Soviet communists were. And for those politicians, whether you're Republican or Democrat, if you're establishment, we're coming for you too, because we're going to replace you with American patriots with conservative values. Go ahead, Trish. I need a drink of water.
No, everything you spoke is truth, and that needed to be said. It's truth with a capital T. And the issue is with evil. Evil needs two things to succeed. One, it needs the actor who's overtly committing the evil deed, and that is really the socialists and the communists. And then it needs those who would potentially stand against it to stand down. And that's the complicity of what we're seeing from the Republican lukewarm establishment. But the good news is that patriots, as we always have and as we always will, we are standing in the gap, and we are bringing that message forward, and we are in that fight. And that is going to be won ultimately, because truth always prevails, good always wins, God is on our side. We're taking that banner forward, and that is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons that it's so important to get involved with this initiative, because somebody has to stand up to evil. It's going to be us.
So Tricia's now going to break down a little bit of the election and court issues. It's 7:01, but we've decided to stay on a little longer every night because there's a lot to unfold. We will tell you, we will share with you at the end of this broadcast how you could get involved. And know this, I am looking at Twitter. I've got to tell you, Tricia, I'm looking at something here that is really amazing. Right now, over 300 people are viewing this broadcast. Over 300, just on Facebook, all right? On Twitter, we know that that's going to skyrocket real high. So that means people are sharing and things are resonating. And thank you for tuning in. So folks, what we need to do is we'll share with you a little later on how you can get involved, but we will never ask you for a dime, all right? We're never going to ask you for any money on these broadcasts, none. All we want is you to listen, to share, and then we'll share with you how you could be a little bit more effective for our country as you move forward. Tricia, it's all yours. People are waiting to hear you tonight.
Oh, sure. And, it's my honor to be able to sift through all of this confusion that really has been fueled by the media. There's no reason that they shouldn't report on this breaking news, but for some reason that they're not doing it. And you can't even Google it. This is information that I have tried to share on my Twitter feed as it happens. I've included video, and it's something that, again, the mainstream media will not touch, but we're bringing this to you live. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the point where we left off on Friday, where we got that news that the Supreme Court had declined to hear the case that was brought to them on behalf of Texas. And I believe it was 17 states that enjoined that lawsuit. And it's important to note that the Supreme Court declined to hear the suit on due to lack of standing, not on merit. Now, I disagree with the court not hearing it. Justice Alito and Justice Thomas both were dissenting opinions. They believed that the case should have been heard as well. And Jenna Ellis commented significantly on how that was an egregious miscarriage of justice. But again, I go back to that wasn't ever our only pathway to victory. There are other Supreme Court cases that are still alive, one of them being the Rep. Kelly case. And then as of today, there are going to be other issues that are bolstered and that will potentially go to the Supreme Court. So as everyone knows, today is the day that we certified the electors, December 14th. It's a big day. But there is something that happened today that was groundbreaking and that we haven't seen, I believe, in decades, and really in this nature, we may have never seen before in our constitutional history. We have seen duly electors certified previously, but this is key. Now I got word that 7 states have gone the dual elector route. Well, what is that? That is, the mainstream media, they televised all of the electors that were being certified for Joe Biden. What they neglected to bring is that there were another slate of electors that were certified by many state GOPs that went to President Trump. What that means is we not only revert back to our constitutional platforms that will shepherd this process through, like Article 2, Section 1, that gives the sole ability to the legislators to select electors, but we go to something called the Electoral Count Act of 1887. And that is the pathway to the 12th Amendment that I mentioned on Friday. What that does is it gives Vice President Pence, among others, the ability to choose between the dual electors. It's a very complicated process that we don't see often in our constitutional journey, but that is what has happened today. It's groundbreaking. It now remains to the Supreme Court or to Congress when it reconvenes on January 6th. Both are still live pathways, and the best news of all is that these are multiple pathways to a President Trump victory.
Tricia, in the span of time that you were speaking, we jumped from that 300 I told you to 700. And now questions are coming in. So let's hang in there a little low. We still got about 10 minutes. Now someone just said this, and I want to answer this because I'm tired of the same accusations against the president and against those of us who are taking a strong position against communism. There are over 300,000 dead. Wake up. All right, 300,000 dead, wake up. So there's your blame. They're blaming us. They're blaming the president. They're blaming the fact that we're advocating measures that are anti-communist. First of all, we have woken up. We support wearing masks. We support cleaning your hands. We support doing those things that are necessary to mitigate the virus. What we don't support is when the constitutional rights of the American people are trampled on. So out of those 300,000, to the person that just sent me that message, I'm going to ask you a question. Give me the number of people who died because of pre-existing conditions and not the virus. Give me the number. You can't, because they won't release that. Everything. I've read reports, legitimate reports. People are in auto accidents, they die, coronavirus. People had pre-existing conditions of pneumonia or whatever, they die, coronavirus. Everybody's dying from the virus now. That's number one. Number two, give me the statistics on how many people have had the virus and were cured, that it passed, that they survived. You can't give me those figures because they won't release that, because it doesn't fit their narrative. Tricia, you're in the field of statistics. You're a statistician, you're a scientist. Please tell me, am I right or wrong?
Well, you're absolutely right. And the numbers bear that out. The CDC themselves has released that number that only 6% of the total deaths that are being recorded as COVID related are actually due to COVID alone. So that gives you a glimpse right there. If you take 6% of that 250,000 number that the CDC and all of the health venues are releasing, that's a much, much smaller number. And there are some back of the envelope calculations trying to look at how many have survived, like you just said. And one study shows that over 45 million have had COVID and survived, and that bears out because it has a 99.9% recovery rate, and if you're under 65 and healthy, you have a 0.00006% chance of dying of COVID. That doesn't mean that we want anyone to die. That doesn't mean we don't recommend precautions. But to your exact point, Steve, it means that we have to make sure that the cure is not worse than the disease itself. And I'll give you a quick anecdotal piece of information. There was, amongst many others with pre-existing conditions that aren't getting treated, there was a 30-year-old woman that died of an arrhythmia because her procedure that she was going to go in to have cardiac ablation was deemed a non-essential procedure. And this was a mother of two, I believe, 30 years old, who is dead now because she couldn't get the treatment that she needs. And that is multiplied across our state, or across our country, by the thousands. This is not appropriate to have people dying that could be treated. COVID it's not worse. It can't be, the treatment can't be worse than the disease itself.
So tell me this, the individual who sent me that accusation that we're responsible for 300,000 deaths and we should wake up. So answer this question. Would you please put right now on the feed how many people have committed suicide as a result of these restrictions? And I'm talking about percentage increase. You can't give it to me because they won't release it. Tell me how many people are now very deeply depressed who are hospitalized. I mean, really depressed, manic depressants, people because they lost their businesses, their livelihoods, their homes. You can't give me those stats because they won't release it. It doesn't fit their narrative. How many people are in psychiatric hospitals? The increase in that. And sadly to say, how many people are now addicted to crack, cocaine, and drugs? I mean, I'm hearing and reading about stories that it's out of control again because they got to relieve their pain, and they're finding it through these terrible, terrible means, alcoholism up. So give me those stats. You gave me 300,000. Why don't you be like a man or woman enough, all right? Whoever you are, send me those stats and I'll read them. Okay, I'll read them here on the air. You know, you can't send me those stats. So your argument in blaming the president and blaming those of us who are American patriots who are fighting communism, it's ridiculous. It's insane. And you have the nerve to send a text like that, accusing us, all right, telling us to wake up. You're the ones falling asleep. Because I'll tell you what, if you were up, I mean this, if you were up and aware of your surroundings, the Chinese Communist Party wouldn't be involved in our colleges. The Chinese Communist Party wouldn't be involved in every level of our government. Socialism and communism is something we wouldn't be talking about. So who's asleep, us or you, Tricia?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, we have to look at healthcare and public policy as a comprehensive solution. And so, again, I reiterate, nobody wants anyone to die. We need to protect the vulnerable. We need to protect the elderly, but we cannot shut down our entire existence to do that when it's not necessary. We have the data now. This is not just breaking. We've been dealing with this COVID situation for nearly a year. We have sound solutions that don't include all of the potholes that you just discussed. We cannot make other people like the vulnerable that have depression, and like the vulnerable that have other concomitant illnesses that need treatment. We can't make their lives be of less value than those lives that we want to protect from COVID. We can do it all. We can do it in a sane and sound way. And we have to make public policy reflect reality and rational solutions.
So we go back to what President Trump said and was widely criticized then, but certainly not criticized now. I remember when he warned the American people and warned these governors not to create a problem or a crisis bigger, much larger than the crisis we're facing through the virus. Well, we are now facing a two-pronged problem, a two-pronged crisis, a two-pronged assault on our nation. One from within, the Democrat communist leaders on every level of government who have imposed what I believe unconstitutional executive orders on the people of this country, taking away their constitutional rights. So we got a problem within the country. It's the establishment, folks. It's the establishment in both parties who are now at war with the grassroots people, you and me. And I tell you what, we know how to fight. They don't. They only, they like to fight in public with there's photo ops and things like that. They want to get praised. But grassroots people, we fight. We fight with everything we got for our rights and for our liberties. So at the end of the day, regarding the establishment, as President Trump has proven, we win, they lose. But the other greater fight is against the Chinese Communist Party. Believe me, folks, you haven't heard the end of that. They're here, and we need to deal with them, and deal with them we will. And as time goes on, we're going to give you more and more information about that. Now, here's what you can do. Email us. You want to get involved? Like I said, we're not going to ask you for money, all right? But we'll send you information. We'll put you on our newsletter list. 18,000 go out a month. You'll see wonderful op-eds from Tricia. We'll give you information. In fact, we do from time to time send special reports, and we're going to send a lot of information out about how bad it is with the CCP here in America, the Chinese Communist Party. But you do that, email us. We'll post the email when we post these videos, and please share. So here's where you want to email. Campaign for, the number 4, Campaign for America at ltrogers.us. Campaign, the number 4, America at ltrogers.us. And we'll post that. Tricia, before we sign off, any last words?
I just encourage all the patriots watching. Let's all stick together. Let's share this information, because the mainstream media will not let you know the truth. And let's stay in this fight for President Trump. Multiple pathways to victory are still in play. And if we stick together and get the truth out, that's going to get us part of the way there. Let's follow our president right through to January 20th.
And when you email us, if you have any questions, put them in the email and we'll answer those questions at the next night's broadcast. So that's it, folks. Look, I am absolutely astounded over what I'm seeing here. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. Tricia, there are some people that have actually texted me saying that they are watching along with 10, 15 other people. So they've got us probably on a Chrome on a big screen, and that's really flattering. But as we say, we bring you news and information that is vetted. It's all fact. We don't throw any embellishment in, because that's what the mainstream media does. So please pray for us, play for our country. 6:30 every night, Monday through Friday, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook Live. We're going to be expanding our social media base, hopefully right after the new year, to include more platforms. But our most important resource is you. Get these videos out there. Just share, share, share. And why not have a couple of house parties on any given night at 6:30 and gather around the fireplace or the table and turn us on, because we hope we're turning you on to get involved and to rise up like Americans always do in a time of crisis. The good record we have is we're Americans and we win. All right, 6:30 p.m. tomorrow night here on Campaign for America. God bless you. God bless America. God bless our president. And remember, the chief end of man is to love and glorify God forever. Until tomorrow night, have a good evening.